Tonight on Primetime, many companies make painkillers containing codeine. They're available over the counter in pharmacies, but the drug is highly addictive and it's open to abuse.
They will traverse a wide area, going to multiple pharmacies.
Strict guidelines are supposed to control their sale. How well are they being followed?
I think I need some Nurofen Plus, please. Just now? Oh, yeah. Oh, the Plus, that's all right. Oh, yes. Anything else? No, that's it. Thank you so much.
There's no attempt to implement the guidelines here.
We'll ask if our rules are good enough, and we'll speak to a woman who survived her addiction to codeine and the sister of a woman who did not. The sale of over-the-counter codeine-based painkillers is supposed to be restricted in Ireland. Because they can be highly addictive, guidelines were introduced over a decade ago to limit the sale of such tablets, including Nurofen Plus and Solpadeine. They should only be sold when a pharmacist deems it necessary and with counselling on the correct usage and adverse side effects. Tonight, Primetime uncovers widespread disregard of these rules by pharmacies around the country, many of whom sold this potentially harmful medication without asking the necessary questions or giving full guidance. Conor McMorrow reports on this lapse in controls and the devastation codeine addiction has wreaked on some Irish families.
Karina Newell will always remember her baby sister Laura as a child with a lifelong love of horses, evident from her earliest years growing up in Sligo.
I think possibly Gigi was her first word, and she was drawn to horses from an early age, so her whole life was about getting to the horses in the field next to the house and working in stables nearby. And she eventually, when she was still just a teenager, got the chance to go and work in Tipperary with Charlie Swan.
Vaguely charming, the early leader with
Working for renowned jockey and trainer Charlie Swan was a dream come true for Laura, seen here in green, riding Tender Return at the Killarney races in 2000.
As they go to the line, Mulhackabat wins it, Muscovite Marble second, Tender Return third.
She was quite a sensible lass. She made friends easily. She had a sunny disposition.
After a few years, Laura scaled back her involvement with horses when she started a family with her then partner Jonathan back in Sligo. They had 2 children, Gray and Megan.
Laura was an amazing mum, and she just lived for her girls. She urged them to live their dreams and allowed them to be both the individual, resilient characters that they are.
Laura suffered from undiagnosed endometriosis when she was a young woman. Karina says Laura's former partner Jonathan remembers her taking codeine painkillers for her period pain.
He told me that he always remembers her having a box of Feminax in her bag when she was young. And at some point that changed to Nurofen Plus. So she was obviously using these to cope with the pain of the endometriosis. Laura had a miscarriage when Megan was about 3 years old, and we think this was a turning point. We think that this might have been the point when the painkillers became something other than painkillers.
Unknown to her family and friends, Laura would find herself in the grip of an addiction to over-the-counter codeine painkillers.
Codeine is an opioid medication that is used in the treatment of mild to moderate pain. It belongs to the same group of opioids such as heroin, so it is very addictive.
Prolonged or excessive use of painkillers containing codeine can be extremely harmful.
It can be very, very damaging because they're combined with paracetamol, ibuprofen and sometimes aspirin. The effects of this can be very damaging to the liver, to the renal system, to the gastrointestinal system. Prolonged use can also cause overuse headache. It can cause dizziness, it can cause cognitive effects, and it can also cause psychological disturbances.
Karina, who works as a social worker, has lived in Shetland off the coast of Scotland for 19 years. On a visit home to Sligo in the summer of 2015, she realised there was something wrong with Laura.
She had lost a lot of weight. She was quite detached from everything going on. At the same time, Gray made a comment about going to different chemists with Mam.
This was the first hint that Laura was chemist hopping, going from one pharmacy to the next to buy multiple boxes of codeine-based medication. Then, in October 2015, Karina got a call to come home as Laura was seriously ill in hospital.
Laura was unconscious and had sepsis at that point and was rigged up to machines and it wasn't looking good. And the hospital were treating her for an eating disorder because that's how the opiate addiction looked when nobody knew there was opiates involved. It looked very much like an eating disorder.
At this stage, Karina set about investigating whether Laura was addicted to painkillers.
I remember taking Dad and we went to chemists with a photo of Laura and they all knew her. Some of them said she was banned, others were aware she was in and out. Anywhere that her children had said they'd been to a chemist, we went and checked and she was known there for buying painkillers.
Laura recovered from sepsis and got out of hospital. Despite attempts to help her, she continued to buy codeine painkillers in pharmacies and online.
After that, the opioid use, I think, became more coercive and she was able to hide it better. She wasn't presenting as somebody obviously under the influence of any opioids.
2018 was heartbreaking for the Newell family. Their father Timmy died suddenly and their mum Marie was also hit with cancer. Laura moved in with her mother to care for her throughout her terminal illness up to her death in 2020.
Life after that was really difficult for Laura and she didn't share it. She didn't speak. She just got on with things, but she was getting on with things because she'd returned to the opioid use a bit more seriously.
Codeine is addictive, but it's the prolonged or excessive use of the drug it's combined with, like ibuprofen or paracetamol, that can cause damage to the organs.
Slowly, over that year, Laura was complaining more and more about her stomach, saying her stomach was at her and like she was being sick. And as soon as I mentioned opioid use being a possible reason for it, she shut down and she stopped messaging me. She says, no, I think it's IBS or I have diverticulitis but the kind of communication stopped then with her because I had brought up the opioids. And from then she just got iller and iller.
Laura was very sick last Christmas and was admitted to hospital, but she signed herself out after less than a week.
She more or less boarded herself at home. Nobody could get in, she wasn't answering the phone. We were desperate. None of us, we didn't know what to do or how to approach this.
With the help of a GP, Laura's family convinced her nearly a week later to go back to hospital.
Laura at this point was only about 6 stone. She was emaciated. She was in violent pain the whole time with her stomach. She was taking the painkillers for the pain in her stomach at this point. That was the narrative in her head, but that was just continuing to cause the damage. On the Wednesday, when she tried to sign herself out, the surgeon went to see her and they immediately rushed her into surgery where they discovered she had a perforated bowel. But by that point, the sepsis had already started. She never came out of that operation.
Laura's family made the incredibly difficult decision to switch off life support.
Everyone carries guilt at having to make that decision, and it just felt so unnecessary that we had gotten to this point. She stayed with us for a couple of hours after they'd removed the tube. I just did normal things with her. I spoke to her. I promised her we'd look after Gray and Megan. I braided her hair. I spoke to her about Mum and Dad being nearby to help her. And it was a clear feeling that of Laura knowing she'd gone too far this time and not wanting to leave her children, not wanting to leave, but having to help her to cross over in the knowledge that we would take care of things here for her. So just after lunchtime, I think it was on that day, then Laura passed away. And she was only 39.
Aware their mother had stomach problems, Laura's children, Megan and Gray, now 16 and 19 years old, never knew about their mum's addiction until after she died. Karina believes Laura never really confided in anyone, despite her family's repeated attempts to help her.
When I cleared out Laura's hospital bag, there was just handfuls of Nurofen Plus falling from everywhere. There was packets, there was blistered packs, there was loose tablets hidden in socks, there was a hat full of tablets. She never entertained the mention of tablets. She never said, I have a problem with tablets. That just never ever happened in all those years.
Last week, a HSE National Patient Safety Alert was issued to all health service personnel, warning about the risk of harm from codeine-containing products. Citing Laura Newell's tragic death, the alert said the devastating personal impact of dependency cannot be overstated. Mum of 4 Kate Murray was 19 years old when she started taking codeine painkillers. She had been sexually abused and was experiencing ongoing stomach pains, which she now puts down to anxiety as she tried to cope with her trauma.
They make you feel numb. It's just that numbness to numb all the pain inside. So that's why I started taking them. I had physical pain as well, but it wasn't taking away the pain, if you get me. It was just making me feel numb. It started at 2 and then it went to 4. It took a while for my body to get hooked on them, like it took about 6 months. And then it went to 6, 8, 12. It was always going up. Normally 4 a day would last me for the whole day and I'd feel the stone for the whole day and I'd feel fine. 8 was my maximum for a long time. Towards the end, it was 90 a day. So, and that wasn't to feel high, that was just to feel normal, to get rid of the sickness.
Kate, now 32 years old, says she had no trouble buying them at this stage.
Very easy. Just go in and ask for a Nurofen Plus and they just hand them out to you straight away.
After roughly 6 months, Kate managed to get herself off the painkillers and go cold turkey.
It was a hell of 4 days of not being able to see properly, eat, vomiting, sweats, shakes, everything. That was the first time I came off them. It's as worse as a heroin detox. And you think it's okay because it's over the counter. They're not going to give me something that's not okay.
And she stayed off them for about 1.5 years. But when she experienced some serious difficulties in her personal life, she found herself turning to codeine again in 2011. By now, new guidelines around the sale of over-the-counter codeine had been introduced.
The guidelines were introduced in 2010, and these were as a direct response to overdose and poisonings that were being seen across the country in A&E departments in particular. The guidance does state that the sale of the codeine should only be made under the direct supervision of the pharmacist, and also that the pharmacist should assess whether it's the most appropriate course of treatment. And they need to assure themselves that that person actually understands what they're taking, why they're taking it, and the addiction potential.
The guidance for pharmacists contains 9 points that they are supposed to follow. Among these, pharmacists should ask customers if they've tried an alternative non-codeine painkiller. They are also meant to warn customers that codeine combined with paracetamol or ibuprofen has the potential to be harmful in overdose quantities or if used for a prolonged period of time. Customers should be told not to take it for longer than 3 days.
The 3-day warning is really, really important because if the pain is unresolved within those 3 days, then the person does really need to go and see a GP.
Despite tighter guidelines, Kate found that she was still able to buy codeine painkillers quite easily when she said she had period pain.
I'd buy pads and I'd ask for Nurofen Plus, then I wouldn't be questioned. So I had this big stock of pads at home because I wanted to buy Nurofen Plus. I'd be plotting and planning all night long. Where am I going to go? What am I going to say? What pharmacist is going to be working? Oh God, what if it's that pharmacist? What am I going to do? Maybe if I put on my glasses, they won't recognise me. If I wear sunglasses, they won't recognise me. If I wear a hat. All this madness in your head.
By 2014, Kate's dependence on codeine painkillers had done serious damage to her health.
Towards the end, I was getting desperate pains in my stomach. Not able to go to the bathroom. Bleeding, constant bleeding. And I wasn't even getting that rush anymore. I started vomiting blood. Then I was sent straight to the hospital where they discovered I had pancreatitis and that I had really, really low hemoglobin. And I came home from that hospital and within 4 days I started vomiting blood again. I was rushed up to the Mercy Hospital in Cork by ambulance. They were thinking it was gallbladder related till I told them the truth about the addiction and how much I was taking. And they done the camera down to my stomach, found a massive hole from my stomach through to my bowel, burnt all the way through. And that's when it all came out, really, that how bad it was.
Kate was advised to take methadone to assist her in weaning off her addiction to Nurofen Plus.
I went from taking 90 Nurofen Plus a day to 25 mils of methadone. The methadone was going up every week and I was at the maximum of 120 for someone who's never taken heroin. But that was fine for the first few weeks until I became addicted to methadone.
After 3.5 difficult years on methadone, Kate detoxed for 6 months at a residential treatment centre in 2016. Then, a few years later, the pressure of COVID lockdowns saw Kate relapse back into her addiction.
I crumbled and I went back on the Nurofen. And my little comfort cushion was back.
At one point, Kate turned to buying Xanax on the street to stop her feeling sick when she could no longer afford codeine painkillers.
I had a huge relapse in 2020. Then I came off them again.
She has now been in recovery for 1.5 years.
I'm proud now to say that I'm 1.5 years clean and I'm doing really, really well. Really well. I go to my counselling, I go to my outreach. There is help out there, but I just think that so many people are getting caught up and addicted to these tablets that they know nothing about. Codeine regulations in this country have to change.
I know you've been hurting.
Kate now hosts live question and answer sessions on TikTok, telling people about her codeine addiction in the hope of helping others.
Obviously, there is people using them for genuine pain, but they don't know they can become addicted so fast. There's not enough information out there, and there's not enough help out there either. You really have to search for help. If this can help one person, just one person, then my job is done.
Back in Shetland, 9 months after her sister died, Karina does not want Laura's death to be in vain.
People were absolutely shocked by Laura's story and what it had come to. And I think that's the important thing about sharing Laura's story, is that this can happen to anybody and we don't want it to happen to anybody again.
She now wants to see a change in the way over-the-counter painkillers containing codeine are sold.
I strongly believe they need to be on prescription, but in the absence of that, there needs to be a system in place that when anybody goes in to buy opioid painkillers, their name and address is taken and it goes onto a database, so that can then be picked up if they go to another chemist.
Ireland is one of 13 EU countries that allow medicines containing codeine to be sold over the counter without a prescription. In Hungary and the Netherlands, the codeine is only available in cough syrup form. In Estonia, it will become prescription only from next January. Codeine was also changed to prescription only in New Zealand and Australia in 2020 and 2018 respectively. Australia's regulatory authority said at the time most Australians are unaware that low-dose codeine-containing medicines used for pain relief offer very little additional benefit when compared with medicines without codeine. 15 milligrams is the highest dosage of codeine available over the counter in Ireland. Of the 13 EU countries that do allow over-the-counter sales of codeine, Ireland has some of the most stringent guidelines around their sale. It's hard to quantify levels of misuse and addiction.
We lack data in relation to the sale of over-the-counter codeine products. We have some data in relation to people who are in treatment, but this data is quite varied because it is only captured when people actually enter treatment.
Over the last decade, there has been a 47% increase in the number of people treated for problem codeine use. And roughly 2/3 of the cases over the last 10 years reported that codeine in combination with other non-opiate drugs, which includes painkillers like Nurofen Plus and Solpadeine, sold over the counter, was their problem substance.
The issue of codeine dependence is a significant concern to me, and I do regularly treat people with this problem. Quite often it is people who are otherwise functioning quite well, and outwardly would appear to be okay and not have any problems. But what you find is that they will traverse a wide area, going to multiple pharmacies and determining which pharmacies are perhaps easiest to acquire them from, the story that they need to tell in order to get them. But the problem with that is that it begins to dominate their whole lives. This is definitely a significant enough issue that we should be concerned about, and there should be a discussion about, and there should be an approach towards prevention.
Packets of over-the-counter medicines containing codeine all come with a detailed list of warnings and precautions from the manufacturers around the potential dangers caused by their misuse. These include warnings like, this product should only be used when clearly necessary, and taking codeine regularly for a long time can lead to addiction and misuse, which may result in overdose and/or death. For these reasons, we have stringent guidelines, but are they really being lived up to? To find out, Primetime sent a secret shopper into 18 pharmacies in 3 different counties to ask for Nurofen Plus. Dr. Michelle Foley has done extensive international research into codeine misuse and dependence. She says the most important questions to begin with are, what are you taking it for, and have you tried another painkiller first? We asked her to assess the footage.
Hiya, can I get a box of Nurofen Plus, please?
The 12 or 24?
24, if that's okay. Thanks.
The staff member goes to fetch the tablets and returns to the counter.
We only have 12.
Okay, that's all right.
There was no attempt to counsel the customer in relation to the dangers around addiction, and it didn't attempt to give any advice really in relation to the consumption.
I need to get some Nurofen Plus. Oh, great stuff, thank you. Thank you so much.
Have you taken it before?
Yes, I have.
You know you can't take more than 3 days.
Okay, no problem.
And if you won't take more than 3 days, I don't know.
Okay.
I'll do it.
This pharmacy was the only one featured tonight to respond to queries from Primetime. In a statement, they said that if they did not fully follow the guidelines which are normally adhered to, then this will be a matter of internal investigation.
I can see that the counter assistant is quite a distance away from the dispensary. So whether the pharmacist oversaw that transaction is debatable. It's almost like as if the person selling the drug isn't himself aware of the risk.
Whilst 12 pharmacies gave the 3-day warning, most didn't explain why it was important to stick to this. In fact, only one pharmacy out of the 18 actually told Primetime's undercover shopper that codeine is addictive. 3 out of the 18 pharmacies didn't give our shopper the 3-day warning at all, and a further 3 said that it was for short-term use only, but didn't specify for how long. Despite the guidelines clearly stating that the pharmacist must be satisfied that codeine painkillers are the most appropriate treatment, just 3 of the 18 pharmacies asked why she needed to take codeine in the first place. Only one asked if she had tried paracetamol or ibuprofen instead.
Hiya, I'm looking for a box of Nurofen Plus, please.
Are they for yourself?
Yes, they are, yeah.
What sort of pain?
They're for period pain.
Okay, do you take any of the medications for anything else?
No.
Have you tried any of the pain?
Yeah.
Might make you a bit sleepy.
The staff member asks Primetime's shopper if she has stomach problems, tells her to take the tablets after food, and warns they can make you drowsy.
It's €10, please. Maybe just use it for the first day. If you can get away with normal ibuprofen or paracetamol, do that.
Of the 18 pharmacies, this one followed the most guidelines, but still fell short.
We can see that they attempted to ask questions in relation to other medication and also in relation to what the actual drug was to be used for. But they didn't give any indication of the addiction potential of the drug.
In another pharmacy, our undercover shopper was given minimal advice.
Have you been sent?
I'm looking for some Nurofen Plus. Thank you so much. 24, if that's all right, please.
Our shopper waited for a minute while another customer was served, then paid for the tablets.
Yes, thanks a
Put them
million.
into a bag for you.
Oh, no, it's okay. I'll pop them into my bag here. Thanks a
So
million.
2 up to 3 times a day, preferably after food.
Okay, thank you so much.
They didn't follow any of the guidelines, bar mentioning the dosage at the end of the transaction.
As she wasn't asked any questions or given any warning about codeine, we sent our shopper back into the same pharmacy just over 2 hours later. We wanted to see if this was a once-off or if she would be recognised. She had taken her ponytail down and had removed her jacket.
I think it's Nurofen with us, please. Just now? Oh, yeah. Oh, the plus, if that's all right. Oh, yes. Anything else? No, that's it. Thank you so much. €10.50. Oh, great stuff.
There's no attempt to implement the guidelines here whatsoever.
Primetime's shopper was sold Nurofen Plus in each of the 18 pharmacies and bought 408 tablets over 3 days. In a statement, Nurofen Plus manufacturer Reckitt say they support all current requirements in place for the safe sale of over-the-counter codeine-containing medicines. We showed the footage of all the pharmacies to Dr. Michelle Foley.
There was some attempt in some of the pharmacies to adhere to the guidelines, but none of the pharmacies that we saw in that footage actually ticked all the boxes in relation to the guidance that has been supplied to them from the regulator. It's very worrying. There needs to be much tighter regulation within pharmacy if they are to continue to sell this product over the counter.
Dr. Michelle Foley ending that report from Conor McMorrow. We approached the pharmacy regulator last Wednesday to appear on our programme to answer some of the issues involved, but they declined. We also asked to speak to the Pharmacy Union, which represents pharmacies, but they declined to appear. Conor is with us now. And Conor, we specifically asked the regulator when was the last time they sent out shoppers to see if the guidelines are being followed. What did they have to say?
Well, Sarah, it's quite recently actually. They told us they had undertaken a comprehensive mystery shopper exercise to assess compliance with the guidance on the safe supply of codeine products to the public. They say they are currently collating the findings from this very recent exercise and intend to publish the findings. The existing guidance on the supply of products containing codeine will be updated if required. Sarah, that mystery shopper exercise has been taking place just since the start of September and it's still ongoing.
We also asked the Pharmacy Union 3 questions. Why all of the 18 pharmacies in question failed to fully follow the guidelines, what the IPU will do to make sure this no longer happens, and if the IPU is in favour of codeine medicines being prescription only. What do they have to say?
Sarah, they did not answer any of the points we put to them, but what they did say was they provide protocols, information and support for the safe sale and supply of non-prescription codeine medicines in accordance with guidance from the pharmacy regulator. OK,
Conor, thank you very much for that. Now, earlier today, RTE's Fergal Bowers put it to Minister for Health Stephen Donnelly that none of the 18 pharmacies visited by Primetime were following the guidelines. This is what the Minister had to say.
Well, that's something that we would take very seriously. Those recommendations are in there for an important reason. We know that when the recommendations came in, that the amount of codeine-based painkillers that was being given out, it did fall. It does provide an important extra check, and certainly we will be looking to the programme tonight to see the details and any required action in response to that to make sure that pharmacies are complying. We will take. I would say though that in my own experience, pharmacies do ask the questions, they do go through the protocols, but if what we're seeing is a significant breach of that, that's something that we will engage with. We will engage with the Irish Pharmacy Union and others on.
Well, for more on this, we're joined now by Marion Harkin, Independent TD for Sligo Leitrim, and thank you for coming in to us this evening, Marion. What do you think of what you've seen this evening?
Well, it was pretty harrowing. And it's obvious from the investigations you've carried out that some of the pharmacists are making some efforts to follow the guidelines, but I didn't see any evidence that all of the guidelines were being followed all of the time. And then we saw the impact, you know, when people become addicted, the devastation on families and on people themselves. I mean, can you imagine the awfulness, the horror, going round pharmacy to pharmacy looking to buy drugs just to keep you going, and people not knowing about it. And I think very many people are just not aware of how addictive codeine is. And I think if they were, it would certainly cut down on the numbers who are addicted.
And I suppose that's where the pharmacists come in, isn't it? Or that's where they're supposed to come in when it comes to the guidelines, to talk to people about the potential adverse side effects of the medication, to counsel them and not taking them any longer than 3 days. We see from the report this evening that lots of pharmacists aren't doing that, or they weren't doing that in the cases that we visited.
Not to the extent, certainly, that the guidelines would require for some of them. And I presume also, you know, pharmacists have a responsibility, but they also have their customers. And, you know, I've read, because obviously I've had a lot of people contact me about this, because I raised this issue in the Dáil, because Karina Newell, I taught her many years ago in Sligo, and she contacted me a little while after her sister died. And she asked me to raise this issue, because she didn't want other families to go through what her family had gone through. And that was sort of my introduction to all of this. But previously, when I was in the European Parliament, I did a lot of work around the issue of pain and chronic pain. And while obviously the focus this evening is, and rightly so, is on the fact that guidelines that are in place need to be implemented, there is also the issue that we don't have the number of pain clinics to treat people. And I'm not just talking about treating here for addiction, I'm talking about treating people for pain. Because pain is now recognised as a disease in its own right, not just a symptom of another disease.
Because, as you mentioned, you did raise this in the Dáil. So what response did you get from people?
Well, I got varied responses. A number of healthcare professionals contacted me and said, please keep doing it. This is important. A lot of people don't know. They need to know. But I also got emails from other people who said to me, look, if I have to go to the doctor every time I need to get Nurofen Plus or Solpadeine, I can't afford this. I'm trying to manage my pain. Don't ask me to do this. So I think what we need is a two-pronged approach. Obviously, that people have the information, and the best place to get that is in the pharmacy, in a side room, not with everybody else listening to your business. There's, you know, an element of that there. And pharmacists are probably cautious about that. But most pharmacies have a side place where you can bring somebody and have a heart-to-heart, have a real chat with them. But also, I think it's not just enough to do that. I think we've got to refocus how we deal with the issue of pain, because pain clinics are so badly needed. We don't have the numbers that we need to help people who find themselves going from one pharmacy to another looking for something to control their pain.
OK, Minister Donnelly saying this evening that if more needs to be done to regulate the sale of these products, it will be done. Do you think more does need to be done at this point?
Well, I think tonight's programme will have an impact, and I think that's important. I think the guidelines that are in place are pretty strong, and I think if they were implemented, it would be a big help. But we do see across the globe that more and more countries are looking at banning over-the-counter opioid medicines.
Marion Harkin, thank you very much for joining us this evening. And if you've been affected by anything discussed in tonight's programme, you can get advice and help on rte.ie/helplines. That's all we have time for tonight. Miriam will be back with Fran on Thursday. But for now, from all of us here in the Primetime team, have a very good evening.